Hey guys, it's Levi here, and for the last 4 or 5 months, I've been building an AI agent SaaS platform entirely as a solo founder. In this video, I'm going to be showing you a little bit about my product and also the journey along the way and some of the lessons that I learned. My startup, Brdge AI, is an AI presentation agent that communicates on your behalf. It's really useful for things like informational content, technical onboarding, and for sales as well. First lesson is that you really want to have a vision for a problem that you're passionate about, and this gives you conviction. So either through doing research or coming upon a problem that you're facing, you really need to have a strongly held belief because this is going to get you through those low periods. So probably for a few months, I was just iterating on different concepts, exploring different industries. But until you find that thing that you really have a high conviction in, I really wouldn't even start coding. I wouldn't start building. This is phase one. You want to find that idea that inspires you, right? And in some ways, I feel like there's two kind of types of founders or two types of startup ideas. One is where you have this vision of the future that maybe doesn't even exist yet, and you're trying to build that, and you're really passionate about it. And the other one is like it's a more immediate concern. It's a problem that you face or someone that you know faces. So either way, whatever way that you came upon your startup idea, I would say iterate until you find something that you're really passionate about and you have a high conviction in working or that people using your product. So for me, the problem that I faced was that meetings and business communication internally and externally was really just a waste of time. All the insights and information, they're really hard to get to. You either have to call a meeting to have a big discussion, and the documentation is terrible. You know, I'm coming at it from a technical leadership perspective, but it's really hard to get the answers that you want. And when people leave the company, they leave with their knowledge, right? So that's a huge problem. And I was inspired to solve that issue with AI agents that can effectively act as like a knowledge repository. And I ended up then focusing on presentations as a component of that. So basically my initial idea was just have an AI agent, you know, at very high level, an AI agent that acts as your representative in a business sense. But that's obviously very high level. And I ended up honing it down thinking, you know, what are key components? It's your knowledge, and it's your personality, it's your voice. And then basically envision that this is being used for things like sales calls, presenting content, info products, and that each document you share can have a bridge to go along with it and to answer people's questions in your voice, right? That's the concept. Okay? Well, most of the time in a business setting, we share information through presentations, right? We have some visual element that we're walking through. We have almost like a memorized script in our head about the topic. And people can interrupt us. They often do interrupt us. And then we have the ability, we can tap into our knowledge and we can answer their questions. So, you know, presentations is an interface that's a little bit different than chat. And that's something that I became a little bit obsessed with as far as like, okay, how is it different than chat? Well, there's more of a one-way communication. So we focused on some of these, I would call it user experience, and like market research, if that's your thing, but really just researching like what you're trying to solve for. And basically I came upon this unique angle that I need to come up with like a simple user experience that allows non-technical, like business users to create these presentation agents with a very clearly defined static behavior, because in a presentation, if no one asks questions, you have that static behavior. And basically each slide or the overall agent has a knowledge base attached to it that you can then configure as well. So making it extremely user-friendly would allow business users to adopt this technology. And obviously, the end goal is just to improve their communication within their business or with clients that they're communicating with and so forth. So lesson number 2 is okay, so you have your idea, you've sort of done the research on it. Lesson number 2 is to start coding, obviously. But I would say start simple. So this is a picture of me a few months ago in Thailand. And that's where I basically started coding this. And it really sucked because the output of it really sucked. It was just like a Python script that did some things I'll show you later. But it was really awesome. It's like the peak creativity experience because, I got to sort of try to figure out the core features that would be required, designing like the user experience. I was just really inspired. I was in a very inspiring location as well. But effectively over the latter few months, or even within a few week period, I probably went through a new GitHub repo every week because I was just trying to find, what's the correct tool, how to approach it. I would do something for a week, throw it out, start all over again, right? So there was not a lot of attachment to there was attachment to the problem, but there was not a lot of attachment to how I get there. I really was just trying things out until I came to where I am today. And this is the current iteration. So this is the platform now, and basically allows you to upload PDFs, and that those are instantly transformed into agents. So you take a document, it instantly becomes an agent that has like that predefined script and the knowledge base for each slide, and you can then share it, and it becomes interactive. Effectively, I decided on, how do you set this up? So the idea is you upload it, and we automatically generate what we think is the best guess, script wise. But obviously, you want to put your own spin on it. So created like a Copilot like editor where you can revise, enhance the prompt, tell it to make it longer, make it, have better language, whatever. And then the other key, discovery was that adding a voice cloning element here really does make a difference because it's more personalized. It feels like you're talking to the person who created that, and it just creates more genuine connection with your audience, right?
So here's actually the Brdge AI site. I actually just uploaded the docs that I covered, and here you could see each slide has its own script and agent knowledge base. And then we can use this Copilot editor type thing to change the script, change the knowledge base, and then we can very quickly sort of iterate on what's said on each slide and how it can respond. There's the voice cloning set up there. And going back to the dashboard, we could actually make our bridges public and shareable. And this is from the viewer perspective. This is what you could send someone.
Hey everyone, today I want to share how I built a SaaS as a solo founder. It's all about Brdge AI, an AI presentation agent that communicates on your behalf. Let's dive in and explore how this can change the way we present and connect.
Sure, sounds good.
Great. If you have any questions,
So lesson number 3 in my process was just to avoid no code. And I just think that knowing how each piece fits together, whether that's front end, database, cloud, it's really a very high value skill to know these tech stacks. I would say that I would avoid no code and instead just view this as a learning experience where, if you want to be technical or at least partially technical, I would say you need to learn how to code. You want to be able to go into any part of the business, fix it, right? So those are things that inspire me. I'm a solo founder, right? So I already knew how to code, but I had to learn new things. So I'd say don't use a no code platform, just do it yourself. Also, no code tools can limit you with customization and, unique features. If you hire a group of developers, then they have to rebuild everything. So there's all these constraints. There's lock-in. Certain platforms you can't even export your data. You're like locked in there, right? So, as a caveat, I would say no code might work for you if you're extremely non-technical. You have no interest in being technical, but then probably you're not going to be a solo founder. If you want to spin up quick MVPs, I could see it being useful. And, you want to get quick validation. That's not how I've approached building this product with like very quick validation. Maybe I should have done more validation, but I think there's different approaches. There's no one size fits all. So I'm not saying, absolutely no code, but if you want to build like the end product, that's going to probably require code. So the nuts and bolts. So obviously a startup has many components. There's marketing, there's your users, everything, but the core, I think, is the technology, right? So what the actual product is, usually has different components. And I've boiled it down to 4 components: the front end, basically the user interface; the back end, which is like the business logic; the database, which is obviously stores your data, defines kind of like the schema of your business, and AI engineering, which I'd say is like a blend of the back end. But I like to separate them because it's definitely different. So basically, what worked for me in this process. Remember, I was really just starting from this idea, and I was trying so many things. So I figured the best way to do this is to focus on the magic first, right? So I focused on the AI backend, the AI engineering, just like a Python script with gluing together like the API calls. I figure that's like the core functionality, at least in an AI SaaS product. That's like the core functionality. I was just, I'm not trying to get that perfect, but I was trying to get at least like a core AI backend built, which is just like some scripts and functions and stuff. And then I focused on like the UX and the design. So really thinking about, okay, who is using this product? How are they using it? Where does the AI come in? That gives you like the visual sense of like your product. And like for me, I have these bridges, but there's basically two types of users. Like you could be a bridge creator where we need like a special interface to basically allow you to create these agents. And then there's like the bridge user, which is probably a simpler interface, but then they need really robust, voice assistant, and that needs to be performant. So this was the stage where I kind of like looked at the different types of users, the different use cases, the flows, and stuff like that. Then I moved on to the backend. So the backend, I started writing Flask code in Python. Can use like JavaScript frameworks, whatever works. But I'd say with the backend, you kind of sketch out like core user functionality, like, upload this. Basically, like you've already sketched out the design and like the features of your product, but the backend allows you to like really just make that more concrete. And then I focus on the front end, which in my opinion, with AI tools, the front end's the easiest thing to change and to iterate on. So I'd say in this pipeline of processes, don't focus on it too much. Use like a well-known framework that has a lot of documentation. I like React and Next.js, but I'm not a JavaScript expert. So really, I'd say just make it look good enough that people can figure out how to use it. And then in the future, you'll iterate on it. Then I move on to the database because actually what I found was to keep this as lightweight as possible, I didn't even worry about a database. I just had my back end and front end, and the back end would just like dump files locally. So everything was running locally. It would just like write to the file system and read from the file system. So I think that's like a way to reduce the complexity. I don't know if this is the right process, by the way. This is just what worked for me. And I think focusing on all these components before cloud and like how to deploy it, that's helpful because yeah, if you want quick validation, that's really important to get it in front of users. Of course, they say that. But in my opinion, I just wouldn't worry about that. You don't really know what you're building yet, right? So at this stage, I would just worry about these core product functionality. And then, you can use things like Vercel. I just like self-hosting on cloud. And so, depending on the complexity, but that's not overly complex. There's simple ways to do that. Lesson 4 is to multiply your efforts with AI. This is an obvious one. I'm sure a lot of you are using, AI tooling. Definitely, I found Cursor with Claude to be extremely powerful, especially for me having a software engineering background, data science background. I still had, was lacking on certain things. So Cursor really allowed me to be much more, it allowed me to just do a lot more. I use ChatGPT, the models. I'm definitely a fan of ChatGPT versus Claude, at least the interface. I'm using Gamma AI to make sort of marketing content, presentation content, because that's basically what my platform does. And even this PowerPoint I made with Gamma. And then I use Luma. I use Luma for my logo. I find they have this Dream Machine product that's really good. So I would check that out. I would just be cautious about being overly reliant. I definitely think that's a new thing, especially for people who haven't like learned classical software engineering coding, just to be like, oh, I can use Cursor just to build stuff. Yes, you can, and I think you should, but there's definitely ways where you can abuse it, and I've abused it as well. So a good approach, I think, is like if you're building a new feature, like it's not just like a function, it's actually a serious feature for your product. Then instead of just like giving it to Claude or ChatGPT, what I would do is just investigate that feature yourself. So do a little research on like, oh, what frameworks are used in the sense, and really write up the requirements in a document. That's how it's done in like classical software engineering. You're I don't know, if you're a VP of engineering, you write up the requirements, then you give that to a lead software developer or somebody. So basically investigate on your own, do your research, write up the requirements, and maybe attach screenshots or like mock-ups, and then give it to something like an O1 model or Claude. Have them generate a system design. Ideally, if it's visual, it's great because you can look at it and you can have like a visual reference. Then you can go and take everything you have and pass that into Claude and ask it to just do, one component at a time. And that's just going to allow you to not burn out with this, because a big issue I had with using these AI tools was I thought initially I could do everything with them. And I would go at hyper speed forward, but often, rack up a lot of tech debt. And then I get so frustrated in the early stages, I would just throw out a repo and figure, I could just make another one, right? So that's not a long-term solution. And in the initial stages, go as fast as you want. But at some point, you really need to build on a foundation. So I think there's different ways to do it, but use AI, just don't abuse it. And here's, an example of the improvement in my product over the last 4.5 months. So initially on the left, you see I have just a Python script that I'm running to show like a presentation, and I have like a really shitty voiceover. And then I built a core website, I got a domain and everything. That's a little bit better, but it was just super clunky. It didn't have like any agent capabilities, and it wasn't very intuitive on the user experience. So it was just like a bare bones site, but I was very proud of it, proud of the progress. And now I have what I feel like is a fully functional SaaS application. You can sign up, you can pay for a monthly subscription. There's like usage indicators. You can create one of these agents on your own. You can share it. The user experience is much improved from before. And obviously, I'm not at the point I want to be, but I think it's good enough given the time. So what I would say here, as well as like a big lesson number 5, really share your product. You're going to have doubters, and I think the important thing is you can't be scared of criticism. And when you have people that are mean or whatever, you just have to hold your vision strong. But you have to be flexible with things like the use case UX concerns. Be just intellectually honest with yourself about how much time have you really spent thinking about this. Other people have good opinions too, right? So, but if you have this high conviction, it shouldn't bother you. You're obviously going to have supporters too, and that's great. That's a huge reason just to share it, so you have support and potentially adopters. I'd say at this stage, or throughout this process, show it whenever you build something new, features. Show it. I almost regret not making more videos about it because I was just so obsessed with building. But you really want people to tell you what's wrong with it, poke holes in it, and almost like the more critical, the better. Obviously, there's a point where it's just too mean, but like you want them to really, really give you their honest feedback. So key takeaways, basically lesson number 1, have a high degree of conviction in a vision or a problem that you're solving. Lesson number 2 is just to start as simple as possible. Really focus on going as fast as possible, iterating through different realizations of your idea, doing the research and so forth. Lesson number 3, when you start really coding, avoid any shortcuts, really avoid no code, in my opinion. Focus on time-tested platforms like JavaScript, Python, SQL, AWS. I think just focus on the core. Lesson number 4, leverage AI, but don't abuse it. And lesson number 5, share it with others, get feedback. So that's it for today. And hopefully you guys found this helpful. I'm going to create actually a bridge of this presentation, and I'll put it in the description. So if you want to try out the product, feel free. There's a free trial. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'm going to be making more videos probably more videos about Brdge, but also, use cases that I see for it, different tools that I use for coding. So if any of that interests you, just hit the subscribe button and I'll see you next time.